Next, okay, so we're going to be looking at squads or heroes, and let's.
Oh, I didn't do it in the camera.
Oh, you got it.
I got it.
Okay, it's that one. I'm gonna bring it up on the screen here.
I got it.
Because Jeremy got one, and this will be
one. They don't work with one.
They don't.
Just gonna put that out there. Okay. But I have one.
Kind of expensive, yeah. Unless you 3D print them or something, you know. There's ways.
Yeah, you know,
there's
absolutely.
Ways.
Yeah,
so,
I got a bunch of derpy proxies.
Yeah. So I mean,
definitely encourage everybody to get multiples.
Yeah, and
go get some dollar store D&D minis.
If you would consider, because it's not just this one. There's 4 altogether that you can get, and they can make for a fun game. So we're gonna talk about this.
I lost the game in ScapeCon to Wyrmling, so just to put that out there. They are competitive too. I got wiped by a Wyrmling army, so.
First one we're going to talk about, though, tonight is the Black Wyrmling, and let me just go through the stats here. Vidar, it's a dragon, common hero, it means you can use a bunch of them. Wyrmling, wild, small 3. It's got 1 life, 6 spaces move, range 1 space, attack 3, defense 3, 30 points. Let's get into the stats and abilities, which are a bit. Fledgling, acid breath. So it's kind of like a miniature version of Braxis, basically. Instead of instead of attacking with a Black Wyrmling, you may choose 1 small or medium figure within 4 clear sight spaces of it. Roll the 20-sided die. If you roll a 1 or 10, nothing happens. If you roll an 11 to 15, the chosen figure receives 1 wound. If you roll a 16 or higher, the chosen figure receives 2 wounds. It's got a thing called Wyrmling Bonding. After revealing an order marker on a Black Wyrmling armlet card before taking the Black Wyrmling's turn, you may take a turn with 1 other Wyrmling you control. All right, and so let's discuss this miniature a second. Pros and cons with it when it comes to building an army. Go ahead, team. My throat is just giving away at me, so go ahead.
Yeah, like I said, I lost the game at ScapeCon 2 to a Wyrmling army. It was because my primary matchup was I was doing Blastatron Gladitron combo, and it was pretty good because Blast Glads is a nice classic, right? I've always enjoyed playing that army, fielding that combo, and getting those really sweet, homing beacon attacks. But when you have, I think my opponent at the time was using blacks and reds. When you got mini Zelrigs and mini Braxises versus a Blast Glad army, yeah, they don't last. They don't tend to last very long, and I found that out the hard way. Things were melting to those Wyrmlings, and before I knew I didn't have any army, and I was like, well, GG, I guess, So with my experience, if you know how to use them well, they do a good job. They are basically your version of how can I get dragons in my army without spending a ton of points. Because when you field a dragon in your army, chances are, and correct me if I'm wrong, chances are that is probably the core component of your army, because they are very expensive units. So you tend to build around any dragons that you field, right? Like you get 1 dragon, and then everything in your army tends to either bonus it or help it or bonds, things like that. You don't want to just field a dragon for the sake of fielding a dragon, because that's a very expensive unit to just put on the field for without that utility. So if you want dragons, but you don't want to spend the points, get you some Wyrmlings. Since they do operate technically as like a pseudo army on their own,
right? Like
you're going to be running probably the Wyrmlings on their own. Like when you activate your round or you prep your rounds, you probably do like 1 or 2 turns of Wyrmlings, and then a 3rd turn with whatever else of your army that is working to support them, or if you're using them as support, whatever that you're doing there. But Wyrmlings tend to operate on their own level. So like it's like you activate a Wyrmling, and then you activate Wyrmling Bonding, and then that's your turn. But you're not really like using anything else with that. So it's like they're really good frontline units, especially like I mentioned before with the red Wyrmlings. Common cleanup, very, very good common cleanup. Much cheaper than Zelrig for common cleanup. And the Black Wyrmlings being able to drop, like the luck is a big thing with the Black Wyrmling, as it always is with the acid attacks. But the chance to drop 2 wounds after moving 6 spaces forward is pretty nerve-wracking, and if you do it right, you can put some pretty solid damage pretty early on with these characters. And I know I keep referring to multiples in the terms of the Wyrmlings, but that's how they work. They are
especially if you got multiple versions
a joined
of them.
unit. Yeah, especially multiple. So I'm saying Wyrmlings plural, but yes, we will probably talk about red, blue, and the
In the future.
white later on
Yeah, in the future.
in the future. But just to point that out, they are good together, and they're kind of their own separate thing. So that's how I view them.
Right, and
They're really good to see.
Basically, with the bonding, you could do 2 per turn. There you go.
2 per turn, yeah.
Yeah.
So it gives you a chance for a full round of 6 character movement, or moving 6 characters in a full round, and then just like each of them having a breath attack is pretty. Like if you know what you're using and you use it right, yeah, pretty scary stuff. So
I like them. They're kind of like an a la carte squad. You can kind of build up. If you have a lot of high defense, you bring in the acid breath. If you have a lot of heavy hitters, bring in the white. So there's just so many different combinations. And they did a really good job of just really kind of capturing the theme of like, this is a little rapscallion of a dragon. It's like it's big guy, but they condense the powers to a really fun and usable level.
Yep.
And any other thoughts from anybody else?
I mean, yeah, I quite like the Black Wyrmlings as a unit. I think you gave a great breakdown. They're definitely they have their place in certain like coalition wars, like multi-general format requirements. But generally they're just kind of like deck tech. Like you put like 3 of them as kind of like filler in an army to deal with like crab or PKs. That's basically what the Black Wyrmlings are there for. You're not going to run 10 of them. I mean, you could, but they have a downside. 2 activations is a lot less than other squads get.
Right.
Bonding squads getting 5. Even if you're getting those kills every turn, they're still advancing on you. I think one thing that's really interesting about them, and I think something that people tend to forget, is that if you can engage a 3 defense figure, it's actually more beneficial to do a normal attack than it is to do the dice roll, because the dice roll is an even coin toss, 50%. The 3 attack dice on 3 defense dice is 50.9%. So there's just the slightest little bit of variance there. And maybe you're rolling really well with a D20 and you decide to do that anyways. I've definitely been there where I felt hot with those dice rolls. Like, I'm not touching those things with the skulls on them. But yeah, that's an interesting little tidbit about them. Their acid is really useful from range, but in general against squads, actually more helpful just to like run in for the bite.
That's really
so yeah, they have a lot of options. They got a lot of flexibility. Yeah, they're a fun unit.
Yeah, and together, okay.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
And let's see here. Let me go down here. Okay, so when it comes to combinations and synergies, link description below. Check out the classic Scape units on Heroscapers.com. Yeah, and so with the bonding, it's Wyrmlings. The synergies are the Wyrmlings, and then 1 C3V. And there you go. The
Noskers.
Yeah. That's basically the synergies there. But I mean, that's really all you need for them to.
Thoughts and prayers to the infamous green Wyrmling that never passed SOV.
Oh, the green Wyrmling.
Yeah.
There was so many iterations too. I remember that.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Maybe one day.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Can you imagine the Wyrmling bonding with Counter-Strike, bro?
I gotta.
Is that what it did?
Yeah,
They were trying to do a mini
Kara.
Kara. Yeah, they were trying to do mini Karas. So
C3V.
And,
Give us something. Give us
Yeah.
something.
That'd be cool. That would be fun.
I mean, and for those.
So what happened to that miniature?
there was
Wyrmling?
so
Is that
much
released?
like it was. I mean, it's a tough design to pull off to begin with for like a 30 to 40 point figure, and it went through, like you said, like dozens and dozens of iterations.
I remember
over,
a lot
years,
of discussion about
and
it.
there was like a lot of like not like pushback from the community, but there was kind of a lot of like, this design is just not going to work competitively, and then I think eventually the hope for Green Wyrmling, and it would fit so well, right? It's kind of the last one, like Charos to have little baby brothers, and
Right.
it just never came to fruition, and it's like years out from even being in like discussion of a custom being made, which is really interesting because they made all the other ones work pretty well, and then something about that Counter-Strike ability just was like impossible to nail down for a figure like that. It's really interesting.
Right.
And I mean, I will say too, like, I mean, for the person who's just getting a Heroscape and is thinking, okay, can I use these as my army? I mean, the OG miniatures for these Wyrmlings, I'm sure, aren't cheap. But the great
D&D
news
miniatures
is,
ended. So
yeah. But the great news is that, I mean, 3D printed proxies are probably your best bet, and then just print out some cards, and there you go. Like, for especially playing like competitively and such. If you love dragons, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's definitely a great way to consider them and not break your bank.
I will say this, that if you go to Hobby Lobby and you don't really care about the model, you just play at your home, you can buy a whole like tube of dragons, roughly like around the same size
the
for
dragon
$5.
tubes.
Yeah,
all kinds of stuff. That stuff out there everywhere, and you can paint them
Little proxies for that,
as close as possible to them. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
That's what I was talking about. The derpy ones I have. That's what I have.
Now, let's talk just a little bit of lore on this miniature, because there doesn't look like much, but Jeremy might expand on it. It says character bio.
Oh, I got you.
Character bio: the Black Wyrmling, like all aptly colored Wyrmlings, is both versatile and exciting. It may be wild, but Braxis and Off-Crick keep it in line. So it sounds like this is like Braxis's baby or something. So Jeremy, go ahead. What do you got for lore for us?
I actually don't know where that's from, so I'm kind of confused. I was like, wait, where did that bio come from? So I was like, wait,
written on Heroscaper, so that's what.
No, I know. Now I got a project. I got to do some research. So essentially, this comes from a deep and profound love for the world of Eberron. So because the Wyrmlings came from Eberron.
Right.
And for those that are unfamiliar with that, it was one of the various campaign settings that you could choose when you play Dungeons & Dragons. The OG one, which everyone knows because currently Baldur's Gate 3 and all that stuff, the OG one is called the Forgotten Realms, right? And Eberron was an opportunity to kind of step away from the traditional setting of a high fantasy place. They had magic, they had dragons, they had all that stuff, but magic is a technology on Eberron. And so they have trains, they have this like really kind of gritty steampunk aesthetic where all these cities they use magic as a technology to fuel, for energy, for electricity, all that kind of stuff. It's a really, really cool world setting, and dragons are a very big part of the Eberron concept, because the world itself was created from a dragon's body. There's a really quick summary of the legend. I pulled it up because it's kind of cool, and I promise it's only a paragraph, but it says according to myth, the dragons Sibirus, Eberron, and Kyber were the progenitors of the world. These three discovered or created the draconic prophecy. Kyber then turned on Sibirus, and the two fought over possession of the prophecy, breaking the world. Eberron smashed the prophecy and used the energy released to heal the dying planet and seal Kyber within. The blood of Sibirus rained down to Earth, and Eberron made dragons of all kinds spring from the drops. So that's a very the brief summary of the legend of Eberron. The entire world itself is a body of a dragon that seals another body of a dragon, which is basically the source of all the evil and demon entities and things like that on the planet of Eberron. And then you have it's like a kind of like a Saturn-like ring that surrounds Eberron. That's the body of Sibirus and the progenitor of all dragon kind. And so our Wyrmling friends are basically the youngest versions of the blood of Sibirus that has been brought forth. And that's pretty much, I mean, we don't really have anything specific from that, but the glory aspect, the awesome aspect of Dungeons & Dragons, and especially the collaborative storytelling that comes from it, you can figure out on your own where do you want your Wyrmlings to come from, right? They got a whole continent of dragons on Eberron. They also have dragons that serve spy capacity, like kind of like a Illuminati aesthetic, where they have dragons filling roles in government, but in secret. And they're like, because they live so long, they can move things around in government and move things around in politics, and they like doing that because they know they can live forever, like really really long lifespans. So wherever you want your Wyrmlings to come from, Eberron has a ton of options. That's just the thing, they never really solidified an exact space. It's just for you to know, dragons are the oldest creatures on this planet, and they are very very many places you can get them from. So pretty cool stuff there. And yes, shout out to Keith Baker once again, because I mean, what a really cool world that he designed. And I got to meet him for the first time at Gen Con and got him to sign my Siege card. So I thought that was really cool, because so I was like, hey man, did you know there's Warforged and Heroscape? And he didn't know that. So I was the one to tell him there's Warforged and Heroscape 13 years after the fact. But hey, that's we're not worried about time here. We're getting our game back next year, so hey.
Well, we can't know them all, although we're trying to do this for this podcast, and that's why this is the next one in line, the Black Wyrmling. And so again, it's like,
there you go.
Consider it for your army. Anybody has anything else to say about this this little poison breath filled dragon here? I think it's kind of cute. Anything else? Okay.
I like the thought of Othkirk being its big brother and Braxis being small. I think that's cute.
Yeah, that is.
I think
cute,
it's adorable.
Yeah,
I think it's adorable.
Right.
Anyway, all right. So, but yeah, consider it for your armies. So there's Wyrmlings for your armies, and and this has been taking a look at squads and heroes, or occasionally a tiny little dragon.